The arrogant bride didn't just slap me at her own wedding. She grabbed my hair, ripped my dress, kicked me while I was down, all because 300 guests said I looked beautiful. But when the billionaire groom saw his wife attacking me like a wild animal, his revenge was so brutal it destroyed her forever. What you're about to see will shock you to your core. A jealous bride's violent attack triggered the most savage public humiliation in wedding history. Hit that subscribe button and prepare yourself, because this bride's downfall was absolutely brutal. Hi everyone, I'm Jenny, and I need to warn you right from the start, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound absolutely insane. If someone had told me 6 months ago that I would be physically attacked by a bride at her own wedding in front of 300 guests, all because she was jealous of how I looked, I would have laughed in their face. But that's exactly what happened, and the aftermath was so explosive, so perfectly karmic, that it's still hard to believe it was real. I work as a senior fashion writer for Elite Lifestyle magazine, which means I spend my days covering the most luxurious events you can imagine: designer fashion shows, celebrity galas, billionaire weddings. It's a dream job that's taken me all over the world and introduced me to some truly fascinating people. I'm used to being around wealth, beauty, and drama, but nothing in my career prepared me for what happened at Nathan Cross's wedding. Nathan Cross is one of those tech billionaires you read about in business magazines. Young, brilliant, worth about $3 billion, and surprisingly down to earth for someone with that much money. I'd met him a few times at industry events, and he was always polite, intelligent, and genuinely interested in hearing about other people's work. When our magazine was invited to do an exclusive feature on his wedding, I was genuinely excited to document what promised to be the social event of the year. That's when I first learned about Cassandra Walsh, his bride-to-be. The moment I saw her photo, I knew this wedding was going to be interesting. Cassandra was a blonde socialite who looked like she'd stepped out of a reality TV show: platinum hair extensions, heavily contoured makeup, and the kind of figure that spoke of multiple plastic surgery procedures. Everything about her screamed expensive, from her designer wardrobe to her perfectly veneered smile. But there was something in her eyes, even in professional photos, that made me slightly uncomfortable. A hardness that didn't match the sweet smile she wore for cameras. The wedding was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon at the Four Seasons in Malibu, with a guest list that read like a who's who of Hollywood and Silicon Valley. 300 of the most influential people in California, a ceremony overlooking the Pacific Ocean, and a reception that reportedly cost more than most people's houses. Cassandra had been planning it for 18 months, and from what I'd heard through industry contacts, she'd been incredibly demanding throughout the process. Multiple wedding planners had quit, vendors had been fired and rehired, and there were rumors that she'd made several bridesmaids drop out because she didn't like how they looked in photos. For the wedding, I chose a red dress that I'd found at a boutique in Beverly Hills. Elegant, classic, but not attention-grabbing. The neckline was modest, the length was appropriate, and the color was rich without being flashy. I paired it with simple gold jewelry and wore my dark hair in a low chignon. My makeup was natural and understated. I looked professional, polished, and yes, I looked good. But that was part of my job. Representing my magazine at high-profile events meant I needed to look the part. The pre-wedding event started on Thursday with a welcome brunch at Nathan's Beverly Hills mansion. The moment I walked through those massive front doors, I felt it, that prickly sensation of being watched and evaluated. Cassandra was holding court on the terrace, surrounded by what appeared to be a carefully selected group of friends and family members. She was wearing head-to-toe designer everything, a white Chanel suit that probably cost more than my car, jewelry that could have funded a small country, and enough makeup to supply a drag show. When Nathan introduced us, I watched Cassandra's expression change in real time. Her smile faltered for just a split second as her eyes did a quick, calculating scan of my appearance. I could practically see the wheels turning in her head, some internal comparison being made that I apparently wasn't winning in her favor. "Oh, you're the magazine writer," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "How quaint." I always wondered what it would be like to have a real job. The way she said "real job" made it sound like something distasteful, and I noticed several people around us shift uncomfortably. But Nathan either didn't hear the dig or chose to ignore it, continuing with introductions as if nothing had happened. Over the next 2 days, through a wine tasting and an elaborate rehearsal dinner, Cassandra's behavior toward me became increasingly hostile. Not openly. She was far too smart for that, especially with Nathan around. But there were constant little comments designed to make me feel small and out of place. At the wine tasting, she made a point of asking me if I could afford to drink such expensive vintages on a writer's salary. During the rehearsal dinner, she loudly wondered if I'd ever been to events like this before, suggesting I might not understand proper etiquette. Each comment was delivered with a bright smile, in front of just enough people to be embarrassing, but quietly enough that Nathan never seemed to hear. I started to realize that Cassandra saw me as some kind of threat, though I couldn't understand why. I was there to work, to document their special day for the magazine. I had absolutely no romantic interest in Nathan or any other agenda beyond doing my job professionally. But something about me was triggering Cassandra's insecurity in a way that was becoming impossible to ignore. I caught her watching me constantly, her eyes following me around rooms as I talked to other guests or took notes for my article. When other people complimented my dress or my hair, I could see her jaw clench from across the room. It was like she was keeping some kind of mental scorecard, and every positive comment about me was somehow a point against her. The morning of the wedding, I took extra care getting ready. Not because I was trying to outshine anyone, but because I knew this was going to be one of the most photographed events of the year, and images from this wedding would be seen by millions of people through our magazine coverage and social media. I wanted to look polished and professional, representing my publication well. I chose the red dress I'd picked out specifically for this event, paired with nude heels and minimal jewelry. My hair was styled in a classic updo that wouldn't compete with whatever elaborate hairstyle Cassandra had planned, and my makeup was natural and timeless. When I looked in the mirror, I felt confident and appropriate for the occasion. I looked like exactly what I was, a successful professional woman attending a high-profile work event. The ceremony was absolutely breathtaking. The Four Seasons had transformed their oceanfront terrace into something out of a fairy tale. Thousands of white roses, crystal chandeliers suspended from temporary structures, and a backdrop of the endless Pacific Ocean stretching toward the horizon. It should have been perfect. Cassandra's entrance was a production. She'd chosen a dress that must have cost 6 figures. Layers upon layers of silk and lace with a train so long it required 4 flower girls to carry it properly. Her hair was piled high in an elaborate style that added at least 6 inches to her height, and she was wearing enough diamonds to stock a jewelry store. But despite all that effort, despite all that money spent on her appearance, something felt off. She looked like she was trying too hard, like she was performing the role of a bride rather than simply being one. During the ceremony, I noticed her eyes constantly scanning the crowd, as if she was making sure everyone was paying attention to her rather than focusing on the moment she was sharing with Nathan. When they kissed at the altar, she made sure to turn slightly toward the photographer, giving him her best angle instead of simply being present with her new husband. The reception moved to an even more elaborate setup, a massive tent that had been decorated to look like something out of a Disney movie. The centerpieces alone probably cost more than most people's annual salaries, and there were enough flowers to supply every florist in California. Everything was beautiful, everything was perfect, and everything was designed to showcase Cassandra as the ultimate bride. I was doing my job, moving around the room with my notebook and camera, documenting the fashion, the decor, the general atmosphere of celebration. It was standard work for me. I'd covered hundreds of events like this over the years, and I was good at being unobtrusive while still capturing everything I needed for the article. But I could feel Cassandra's eyes on me constantly. Every time I moved to a new part of the room, she would somehow position herself where she could watch me work. When I interviewed her friends about her dress or the wedding planning process, she would suddenly appear, inserting herself into conversations and steering attention back to her perfect day. The breaking point came during the professional photo session. Nathan had hired one of the most sought-after wedding photographers in the world. the kind of artist who shoots for Vogue and Vanity Fair. He was trying to get natural, candid shots of the reception, capturing the joy and celebration of the evening. As part of my coverage, I was moving through the crowd, taking notes and observing the interactions between guests. Apparently, my presence in some of the background shots was driving Cassandra absolutely insane. I overheard her practically hissing at the photographer, demanding that he retake any photos that included me, even if I was barely visible in the background. She wanted him to delete shots where I appeared, even though they were some of the most natural, beautiful images of the evening. The photographer tried to explain that candid photos were supposed to include other guests, that it would look strange and artificial to completely exclude someone who was obviously part of the event. But Cassandra wasn't listening. Her voice was getting higher and more strained as the evening progressed, and I could see her carefully applied makeup starting to show signs of stress. During dinner, I was seated at a table with some of Nathan's business associates and their wives, all lovely people who were genuinely interested in hearing about my work at the magazine. We were having a perfectly normal conversation about travel and photography when I noticed Cassandra staring at us from the head table. Her jaw was clenched, her eyes were hard, and she kept whispering furiously to the woman sitting next to her. The speeches came after dinner, and they should have been the highlight of the evening. Nathan's best man gave a touching toast about friendship and finding true love. Cassandra's maid of honor shared some sweet stories about their friendship over the years, and then Nathan stood up to thank everyone for coming to celebrate with them. His speech was beautiful, heartfelt, genuine, full of gratitude for the people who had supported them. But when he made a brief, polite acknowledgement of the media coverage, glancing in my direction with a professional nod of thanks, I saw Cassandra's face change completely. The fake smile vanished, replaced by something cold and calculating. She whispered something sharp to Nathan that made him look confused, but he finished his speech without missing a beat. After dinner, as guests moved to the dance floor and bar area, I decided to step outside for a moment. The reception was beautiful, but the tension I was feeling from Cassandra was starting to affect my ability to do my job properly. I needed a few minutes to collect myself and figure out how to finish my coverage without causing any more drama. I found a quiet spot on one of the side terraces away from the main party where I could hear the ocean and have a moment of peace. I was standing there looking out at the moonlight on the water and thinking about how to handle the situation professionally when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around, expecting to see another guest or maybe a member of the catering staff. Instead, I found myself face to face with Cassandra. She had changed out of her ceremony dress into something shorter and easier to move in, but she still looked every inch the expensive bride. Her makeup was starting to show signs of wear, though, and there was something wild in her eyes that made me immediately uncomfortable. "Having a nice time?" she asked, but there was nothing friendly about her tone. "It's a beautiful wedding," I replied carefully, trying to keep things professional. "You and Nathan look very happy together." "Do we?" She stepped closer, and I could smell the champagne on her breath mixed with her overpowering perfume. "Because it seems like you've been awfully interested in getting everyone's attention all evening." I was genuinely confused by the accusation. "I'm sorry. What do you mean?" "I'm here working. I've been documenting your wedding for the magazine feature." "Oh, please," she laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "Don't play innocent with me. The way you've been parading around all evening in that dress, making sure you're in every photo, charming all the guests with your simple and natural act. Do you think I'm stupid?" The accusation was so far from reality that I didn't know how to respond. I'd been nothing but professional all evening, going out of my way to be unobtrusive while still doing my job thoroughly. But looking at her face, I realized that logic wasn't going to work here. She had convinced herself of a narrative that had no basis in reality, and nothing I said was going to change her mind. "Cassandra, I think there's been a misunderstanding," I said gently. "I'm here to work, to document your special day. I have absolutely no interest in anything other than doing my job professionally." "Liar," she hissed, stepping even closer until she was invading my personal space. "I've seen the way people look at you. The way they smile when they talk to you. You think because you're younger, because you have that whole natural beauty thing going on, that you can just waltz in here and steal my spotlight? The irony was staggering. Here was a woman who had everything: wealth, beauty, a loving husband, the wedding of her dreams. And she was convinced that I, a working journalist just trying to do her job, was somehow trying to steal it all away from her. "I think you should go back to your reception," I said quietly, trying to de-escalate the situation. "Your guests will be wondering where you are." That's when her face changed completely. All pretense of civility vanished, replaced by pure, unfiltered rage. "Don't you dare tell me what to do at my own wedding," she snarled. "Don't you dare act like you belong here." I could see other guests starting to drift onto the terrace, drawn by the sound of raised voices. Some were holding phones, probably thinking they were about to witness some kind of drunken wedding drama worth recording. I desperately wanted to avoid a scene, both for professional reasons and because I genuinely felt sorry for Nathan, who didn't deserve to have his wedding day ruined by his wife's jealousy. "Look," I said, keeping my voice calm and low, "I understand that weddings can be stressful, and maybe you've had a little too much champagne. Why don't we just forget this conversation happened and both go back inside?" But my attempt at reasonableness only seemed to enrage her further. "You condescending little bitch," she spat, her voice getting louder. "You think you're so much better than me, don't you? You think because you don't need makeup to look good, because you didn't have to buy your body, that makes you special?" More guests were gathering now, drawn by the commotion. I could see phones being raised, people starting to record what was clearly becoming a very public confrontation. Cassandra seemed oblivious to the growing audience, completely consumed by her rage. "You're just jealous," she continued, her voice becoming shrill. "Jealous that someone like Nathan would never look twice at someone like you. You're the kind of woman men settle for when they can't have someone like me. You work for a living because you have to, because no man would ever take care of you the way Nathan takes care of me." Every word was designed to wound, to make me feel small and inadequate, and I'll admit, some of them hit their mark. But more than anything, I felt genuinely sorry for her. This woman had everything anyone could want, and she was still so deeply insecure that she felt threatened by someone who was just trying to do her job. "I'm going back inside now," I said firmly. "I suggest you do the same before you say something you'll regret." That's when she completely snapped. The mask of civilization fell away entirely, and I saw the real Cassandra, entitled, vicious, and completely out of control. "Don't you dare walk away from me," she screamed, loud enough that I was sure everyone inside could hear her. "Don't you dare act like you're better than me." I turned to face her, and that's when I saw her raise her hand. For a split second, I couldn't believe it was actually happening. This woman, at her own wedding reception surrounded by 300 guests and photographers, was about to hit me. The slap came hard and fast, her palm connecting with my cheek with a sound that seemed to echo across the terrace. The sting was immediate and sharp, and I felt my head snap to the side from the force of it. But that was just the beginning. Before I could even process what had happened, Cassandra was grabbing my hair with both hands, her manicured nails digging into my scalp as she yanked my head backward. The pain was incredible. She was pulling so hard I thought she might actually tear my hair out. I could hear people gasping, phones clicking, but all I could focus on was the burning sensation in my scalp and the wild look in her eyes. "How dare you upstage me at my wedding?" she screamed, giving my hair another vicious yank that brought tears to my eyes. "How dare you make people think you're prettier than me?" I tried to grab her wrists to make her let go, but she was in a complete frenzy. With one hand still tangled in my hair, she used the other to grab the shoulder of my dress and pulled hard. I heard the fabric tear, felt the seam give way as the shoulder of my dress ripped, exposing my bra strap and part of my shoulder. The crowd around us was growing larger, guests pouring out from the reception as word spread that something was happening. I could hear people shouting, some trying to intervene, others just recording everything on their phones. But Cassandra seemed completely oblivious to the audience, consumed entirely by her rage. Still holding my hair, she used her grip to push me backward. I lost my balance, my heels slipping on the smooth terrace floor, and went down hard on my hands and knees. The impact jarred my whole body, scraping my palms against the rough stone. But even with me on the ground, Cassandra wasn't finished. "Stay away from my husband!" she shrieked, and I felt her shoe connect with my ribs as she kicked me while I was down. The pain was sharp and breathtaking, and I curled up instinctively, trying to protect myself from another blow. That's when I heard a voice that cut through all the noise like a knife through silk. "Cassandra!" Nathan's voice was unlike anything I'd ever heard before, not angry, not shouting, but deadly cold and absolutely furious. The single word seemed to freeze everyone on the terrace, including his wife. I looked up from where I was curled on the ground to see Nathan striding toward us, his face a mask of controlled rage. Behind him, I could see what looked like the entire wedding reception. 300 guests crowded onto the terrace and hanging out of windows, all of them staring in shocked silence at the scene before them. Nathan reached Cassandra in 3 quick steps and grabbed her arm, pulling her away from me with enough force to make her stumble. "Have you completely lost your mind?" he asked, his voice still that same deadly quiet that was somehow more frightening than shouting. "Nathan, you don't understand," Cassandra started, immediately shifting into victim mode. She was saying horrible things about our wedding, about us. She was being so cruel and jealous, and I just couldn't take it anymore. But Nathan wasn't looking at her. He was looking at me, taking in my torn dress, my scraped hands, the red mark on my cheek where she'd slapped me. He knelt down next to me, his expression concerned. "Are you hurt? Do you need medical attention?" I shook my head, though my ribs were aching where she'd kicked me and my scalp was burning from where she'd pulled my hair. "I'm okay," I managed to say, though my voice was shaky. Nathan helped me to my feet, his movements gentle but his face still thunderous. Once he was sure I could stand, he turned back to his wife, and the look in his eyes made several people in the crowd step backward. 300 people, he said quietly, but his voice carried in the shocked silence. 300 people just watched you assault an innocent woman at our wedding reception. "Nathan, please, you have to listen to me," Cassandra pleaded, reaching for him. She was trying to ruin our special day. She was being jealous and vindictive, and I just snapped. But Nathan stepped away from her touch, and when he spoke again, his voice was louder, carrying clearly to every person on that terrace. "Since you want to put on a show for our guests," he said, his tone still ice-cold, "let's give them a real performance." I saw Cassandra's face change as she realized that Nathan wasn't going to defend her, wasn't going to make excuses for what she'd done. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked genuinely afraid. "Nathan, what are you doing?" she whispered. "I'm telling the truth," he replied, "something you seem to have forgotten how to do." What happened next was the most brutal, systematic destruction of a person I have ever witnessed. Standing there in front of 300 wedding guests, with dozens of phones recording every word, Nathan began to methodically expose every lie, every deception, every betrayal that Cassandra had committed. "Since my wife seems to think public humiliation is appropriate," he began, his voice carrying clearly across the stunned crowd, "let me share some facts about the woman I just married." He pulled out his phone and began reading from what appeared to be a detailed report. "Cassandra Walsh has been stealing money from my accounts for the past 8 months. Not small amounts. We're talking about over $500,000 funneled through fake charity organizations into her personal accounts." The crowd gasped, and I saw several people's phones lighting up as they started frantically typing, probably sharing this bombshell on social media in real time. But Nathan wasn't finished. "She's also been having an affair with my business partner, Trevor Morrison, for the past 6 months. I have hotel receipts, text messages, and photographs that document their relationship throughout our engagement." Cassandra's face had gone white, then red, then white again. "Nathan, stop," she whispered. But he ignored her completely. "The charity work she's always talking about? The organizations she claims to support? None of it exists. She's been using fake charity events to steal money from my friends and business associates, pocketing donations that people thought were going to help children and animals. Each revelation hit the crowd like a physical blow. I could see people's faces changing as they processed what they were hearing, the disgust and shock spreading through the group like wildfire. And perhaps most relevant to tonight's events, Nathan continued, his voice getting colder with each word. She's been obsessively jealous of any woman she perceives as a threat to her position. She's had several of my female employees fired for no reason other than her paranoia. She's sabotaged friendships and professional relationships because she can't stand the thought that anyone might find another woman attractive. By now, Cassandra was crying, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage and humiliation. "You can't do this to me," she sobbed. "I'm your wife." "No," Nathan said firmly, "you're not." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a set of papers. "These are annulment documents. I'm filing them first thing Monday morning. This marriage is over." The crowd erupted. People were talking, gasping, recording everything. I could see the immediate social media explosion beginning as guests shared videos and updates in real time. This was going to be all over the internet within hours. But Nathan still wasn't finished. "Security will escort you off the property immediately. Your belongings will be packed and delivered to your mother's house. Your credit cards have been canceled, your access to my accounts has been revoked, and my lawyers will be in touch regarding both the theft charges and the assault we all just witnessed." Cassandra looked around desperately at the crowd of faces, all of them staring at her with a mixture of disgust, shock, and fascination. Her perfect wedding, her perfect image, her perfect life, all of it crumbling in front of 300 witnesses. "This isn't over," she snarled at Nathan, then turned to glare at me. "And you little homewrecker, you think you've won something? You've destroyed a marriage." "I destroyed nothing," I said quietly, finding my voice for the first time since the attack began. "You destroyed yourself." Security appeared then. Apparently Nathan had signaled them during his speech. 2 large men in black suits flanked Cassandra, waiting for Nathan's instruction. "Escort Mrs. Walsh off the property," Nathan said formally. "She's no longer welcome here." As they led her away, Cassandra was still screaming, still making threats, still trying to blame everyone but herself for what had happened. The crowd parted to let them pass, everyone recording her walk of shame, her complete and utter humiliation captured for posterity. When she was finally gone, the terrace fell silent except for the sound of the ocean and the gentle music still playing from inside the reception. Nathan turned to address the crowd of guests, all of whom were still staring in shocked fascination. "I apologize to all of you for having to witness that," he said, his voice tired but steady. "This was supposed to be a celebration, and instead you've all been subjected to a very ugly display of jealousy and violence. I hope you can understand that I had no choice but to respond publicly to such a public attack." People began to murmur their understanding, their support for Nathan's actions. Several guests approached to check on me, to offer help and express their outrage at what Cassandra had done. Nathan pulled me aside as the crowd began to disperse, some guests leaving early while others stayed to continue the party, though the mood was certainly different now. "I am so incredibly sorry," he said, his anger replaced by genuine concern. "Are you sure you're not seriously hurt? I can have a doctor here in minutes." I touched my cheek where she'd slapped me, felt the tender spot on my ribs where she'd kicked me. Everything hurt, but nothing felt broken or seriously damaged. "I'll be fine," I assured him. "But Nathan, what you just did, that was incredibly brave. And probably very expensive." He laughed grimly. "Worth every penny. The truth needed to come out, and after what she did to you, I wasn't going to protect her reputation anymore." Over the next few days, the story exploded across social media and news outlets. Videos of the attack and Nathan's response went viral immediately, generating millions of views and endless commentary. The hashtag #Bridezilla attack was trending for days, and Cassandra became an instant internet pariah. The criminal investigation into her theft was swift and thorough. The evidence Nathan had gathered was overwhelming, and within weeks, Cassandra was facing multiple felony charges for fraud and assault. Her affair with Trevor destroyed both their reputations and ended Trevor's business partnership with Nathan. But perhaps most devastating was the complete collapse of Cassandra's social standing. The woman who had built her entire identity around being a perfect socialite wife suddenly found herself a social pariah. Her friends abandoned her, her family distanced themselves from the scandal, and even the legitimate charities she had occasionally supported publicly cut ties with her. The last I heard, she was working retail in a department store in Orange County, her Hollywood dreams completely shattered. Her social media accounts, which had once showcased her luxurious lifestyle, were now filled with angry comments and mockery from strangers. Nathan, meanwhile, seemed genuinely relieved to be free of her. We stayed in touch professionally, and I could see the difference in him immediately. He was lighter, happier, more like the man I'd first met at those industry events years earlier. As for me, the exclusive story I wrote about the wedding became one of the most read articles in our magazine's history. The combination of wealth, betrayal, violence, and instant karma proved irresistible to readers around the world. It launched my career to an entirely new level, leading to opportunities I could never have imagined. But more than that, it taught me something important about standing up to bullies, even when they're rich and powerful and seemingly untouchable. Sometimes the best thing you can do is simply be yourself, do your job with integrity, and let the truth speak for itself. Looking back on that night, on that moment when Cassandra's jealousy boiled over into violence, I realize it was the best thing that could have happened to everyone involved. Her attack revealed her true character not just to Nathan, but to everyone who witnessed it. It gave Nathan the push he needed to stop protecting someone who didn't deserve his loyalty. And it showed me that sometimes karma works in front of 300 witnesses with smartphones. The irony still isn't lost on me. Cassandra was so convinced that I was trying to steal her husband, so threatened by my presence at their wedding, that she lashed out in the most public way possible. In doing so, she destroyed everything she'd worked so hard to build and handed Nathan exactly the motivation he needed to expose her for who she really was. Sometimes the truth has perfect timing, and sometimes it comes with its own audience. And that's how one jealous bride's violent attack led to the most brutal public humiliation ever caught on camera. If this story of instant karma gave you chills, smash that like button and subscribe for more shocking tales of justice served. Comment below, have you ever seen jealousy backfire this spectacularly? The next story is even crazier, so hit that notification bell.